2 days after my daughter's wedding, my new son-in-law stood in my kitchen with a leather binder and a speech about being proactive. My coffee cooled beside property tax receipts. He said, "Hal, let's move your house into the family's name. It's smarter for everyone." I'm a widower. Elaine's garden still blooms without her. The deed is paid off and lives in a manila folder with her blue ink notes. So when Derek talked about avoiding probate and streamlining the estate, it didn't land as help. It slid across the tile like oil. If you've ever gone through something like this, drop a comment. I'm listening. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments section. Okay, deep breath. Let me tell you everything. He said we should sign a transfer on death deed, maybe add his name temporarily, and he'd cover fees. Polite, breezy, rehearsed. Jenna, my daughter, was at work. He'd come alone, glancing at the clock like he had another appointment. The binder had tabs, insurance, titles, power of attorney. I asked for time. He nodded like a teacher humoring a slow student. "Friday is fine. I can bring a notary." He left the binder and texted later to confirm. The house went too quiet. I washed the mug that says "World's Okayest Dad." I opened the deed folder. Elaine's handwriting curved across a sticky note. "Taxes due March. Keep originals." I whispered, "I am keeping them," and realized I'd already decided nobody was touching this place but me. What bothered me most wasn't the pitch, it was the tone, like he was quoting a brochure, and the phrase "family's name," as if mine weren't already carved into this address. I didn't want to poison Jenna's honeymoon glow with suspicion, so I called my neighbor Evan Pike. He's a retired cop who never stopped reading rooms. I gave him the gist. He paused. "Sunday night, I saw Derek at the curb. Guy in a gray sedan handed him a thin briefcase. Heard him say, 'Clean title and older owner.' Maybe nothing, maybe not." I wrote "gray sedan" and "clean title" on a yellow sticky and stuck it to the fridge. Then I slid the binder aside and woke up my desktop. Derek had used it to print the wedding playlist. I'm not proud of the next part, but I clicked the browser history. My throat went dry. Between Best Man Toast Ideas and Cheap Tux Taylor Lake Haven, there it was. Illinois Quitclaim Deed PDF, File Deed River County, How to Add Son-in-Law to House Title, Notary Lake Haven Victor Ames, Mobile, Elder Parent Transfer No Probate, Harbor State Bank Power of Attorney Form, a tab for Gift Tax Limits Real Estate Parent to Child. The printer tray still held 2 warm sheets, generic quitclaim templates, with my name typed into a sample grantor line like I'd already agreed to disappear. He'd tested fonts that mimicked my signatures. In the trash, shallow as a dare, a fake Harbor State Bank letterhead. I photographed everything on the cutting board where Elaine used to cool pies, emailed the photos to myself, saved copies to a flash drive labeled House Proof, and locked the original deed in the fireproof safe behind a box of rusted Christmas ornaments. At 4:13 p.m., Derek texted, "Friday at 11 works. My notary is solid." No question mark on the second sentence. Solid, like concrete setting around my ankles. Evan tapped on my screen door at sunset, carrying 2 iced teas. I showed him the history. He didn't gloat. "If this were me," he said, "I'd play it slow and quiet. The kind of people who say clean title don't expect you to read the fine print." "How do you tell your daughter she's sleeping next to a thief?" I asked. Saying thief made the kitchen shrink. "You don't, not yet. You let him bring his solid notary, you smile, and you make sure someone who knows the law is in the next room." That night I lay awake while the refrigerator clicked and the maple brushed the siding. In the morning I made lists. Everyone who'd ever touched paperwork for this house, the county recorder, the old mortgage officer who sent a letter when we paid it off, Harbor State Bank's fraud line I wasn't ready to dial. I could at least be prepared. I set up a new email, copied the photos to the flash drive, returned the binder exactly where Derek had left it. Let him think I was slow, sentimental, soft. Then I checked the name from his search. Victor Ames. A mobile notary with reviews that sounded a little too polished. I wrote "Verify Notary" on a legal pad and circled it twice. Derek texted again. "You're doing the right thing, Hal. We'll protect your legacy." The possessive pronoun scraped across my teeth. Our legacy had been Elaine teaching Jenna to tuck marigolds into borders, patching the roof one humid Saturday, this table worn by elbows and stories. My legacy didn't need his protection. It needed my spine. I replied, "Friday at 11 works." I added a thumbs up. Let him see what he wanted to see. The house steadied, the way a boat settles after a wake. I brewed fresh coffee, laid out 2 legal pads. On the first, I wrote the facts, search terms, printed forms, Evan's observation, the texts. On the second, I wrote intentions, gather evidence, verify notary, call someone who knows how to keep wolves outside. My handwriting smoothed by the third line. I reached for Jenna's mug, and for the first time all week, it didn't shake. What was I supposed to do? Blow up my daughter's marriage on a hunch, or let a predator erase my name from my own front door? I chose a third thing. Let him think I was exactly the man he'd pegged me for, while I learned everything about the trap he thought he was building. By dusk, I had a plan and a short list of names I'd never heard before. Victor Ames, Harbor State Bank Security Desk, River County Recorder. I tucked the list under a magnet shaped like a cardinal. When the air moved, the paper fluttered like a quiet red-winged warning. Friday would come, and when it did, I would not be standing here alone.
Thursday started with the clack of my old wall clock and a list. I called the River County Recorder first, asked in my most ordinary voice how a homeowner correctly transfers title. The woman on the line spoke like she'd had this conversation before. Both parties present, valid ID, notarized signatures. No, you don't add a son-in-law without the current owner's explicit consent. I wrote her phrasing verbatim on my yellow legal pad and underlined it twice. Next, Harbor State Bank. I asked for the security desk and got Brianna Ortiz. I told her I wasn't reporting a crime yet, but that someone might soon try to use a power of attorney or new deed in my name. She listened. "Mr. Lawson," she said, "if anything arrives that touches your profile, I'll flag it and call you before it posts. If someone asks about your safe deposit box or tries to set up online access, we'll know." I didn't realize I'd been holding my breath until she said those last 2 words. We'll know. Evan came by with a canvas grocery bag like he was bringing muffins. Inside was a digital clock that wasn't a clock. "Motion activated," he said. "Records to a micro SD. If he talks shop when he thinks you're fetching tea, we'll have it." The face lit with a soft blue glow. He showed me the hidden slot, the tiny red LED that meant recording. The thing ticked like any bedside clock would. I felt ridiculous and deadly serious at the same time. He helped me place it on the end of the hutch that looks into the dining room and kitchen, the same line of sight where Elaine used to watch Jenna do homework. We did a test. I walked into the kitchen and muttered, "I, Harold Lawson, refuse to sign anything foolish," and came back to watch the clip. Crisp audio, my refrigerator hum as a bass note, my voice carrying that little tremor I hate. "Good enough," Evan said. "Now, a lawyer." I didn't want to be the kind of man who only calls a lawyer when the world falls apart, but here we were. Evan knew a man. Martin Hale answered on the second ring and told me to come by. His office smelled like paper and old coffee, the comforting kind of messy. He wore reading glasses on a cord and listened without interrupting while I laid everything out, the browser history, the notary's name, the binder tabs, the Friday appointment. He tapped a pen against his legal pad once and said, "We're not going to play offense, we're going to play evidence." He called in his assistant, Kelsey Ward, who moved like a person who turns chaos into stacks. She handed me a thin black device the size of a stick of gum. "Audio recorder," she said.
Legal to carry when you're cooperating with law enforcement and you're a party to the conversation, but let's get law enforcement on board before we do anything." Martin nodded toward the door. "Detective Tessa Jordan. I'll make the intro." I thought of all the shows where people do everything wrong because they're proud. I'd been stubborn my whole life. Today, I tried humble. At the River County Police Department, Detective Jordan had the steady face of someone who's seen every way a person can talk themselves into doing something terrible. I gave her the timeline, the texts, the printed templates with my name slotted in like a tombstone date. She watched a 30-second clip from the test video and then looked up. "We can stage this calmly," she said. "No heroics. You invite them. We listen. If they present forged documents or solicit a fraudulent transfer, we'll step in. Quietly." "Entrapment?" I asked, because once on TV a defense lawyer said the word like a magic spell. "This isn't that," she said. "You didn't invite them to commit a crime. He invited himself. You're documenting it." We set parameters like it was a dinner party. 2 plainclothes officers in an unmarked car at the curb, Detective Jordan in my den with headphones, 1 officer in the kitchen dressed like a utility worker if needed. She gave me a tiny camera disguised as a button and asked me to wear the recorder Kelsey had provided. "Also, don't get noble," she said. "If your heart rate spikes, cough twice. We come through." On the way home, I stopped by the office supply store for a fresh bundle of pens and the expensive legal pads that don't bleed through. Something about the ritual calmed my hands. I opened the safe, checked the original deed with Elaine's blow-ink initials, and put it back like you lower a sleeping child into a crib.
At 6:12 p.m., Derek texted, "Confirming tomorrow at 11. I'll bring Victor. We'll keep it simple." I typed, "See you then," and left it unsent for a whole minute, just to feel the weight of the choice. Then I sent it. At 7:03 p.m., his headlights slipped across my walls. He didn't knock like a guest. He tapped like a landlord. I slipped the button camera onto my cardigan and opened the door, letting the motion-activated clock see everything. He had the leather binder again, and that smile that doesn't reach the eyes. "Just wanted to run through the language," he said, like we were practicing a toast. He opened a page with a highlighted paragraph and read, "Grantor conveys, grants, bargains, and sells to grantee." He stopped and looked up. "It's just boilerplate," he said. "Victor will explain. Easiest thing. We'll add me as trustee, you as beneficiary. You won't feel a thing. It's like an umbrella." Who practices a property transfer like it's a sales pitch? I poured him water and suggested I use the restroom. In the hallway, I counted to 60, then 75, giving him time alone, an earshot of the clock. When I returned, he was on his phone, speaking low but clear enough. "Yeah, Victor, he's good. Friday at 11. He'll sign. I left the draft so he can review. No, the bank stuff we can do later with the POA. He's old school. He keeps everything in a folder." He ended the call and beamed like he'd just booked us a table somewhere nice. "You're doing the right thing, Hal," he said. "Jenna will be so relieved you're simplifying." He left at 7:24. Evan was already on my porch by 7:26. We watched the footage on my laptop, the little red LED a quiet witness in the corner of the frame. We heard the word POA like a ticking clock. We watched Derek tap the page, point to the grantor line, say trustee, beneficiary, simple. It wasn't a full confession. It was better. A plan spoken out loud. I sent the clip to Martin and Detective Jordan using the new email account we'd set up for this mess. Martin replied in 5 minutes. "Perfect. Don't engage tomorrow beyond nodding and asking neutral questions. Do not sign. Let them present. We'll be there." The house took on the feel of a set overnight. I cleared the dining table except for a neat stack of blank legal pads, a simple blue pen, and my reading glasses in the exact middle. I put the binder Derek had left me on a side chair to show I'd done my homework.
I baked a tray of frozen croissants Elaine used to serve whenever someone sat down to talk grown-up paperwork. The smell would keep me from shaking. I slept in fits. At 3:13 a.m., I thought about the day Jenna left for college, how she cried in the parking lot and then laughed because her mascara drew two little rivers. At 5:02 a.m., I thought about how Derek's hand hovered over my counter like he already owned the air above it. What do you call a son-in-law who schedules a notary before you agree? Not family. I put on my cardigan with the button camera and clipped the audio recorder inside the pocket where my thumb could reach it. Detective Jordan arrived at 10:15 a.m. with a travel mug and a smile meant to steady skittish horses. She tucked herself into the den, wires hidden beneath the couch throw Elaine had crocheted through 2 winters of chemo. 2 officers parked at the curb. Evan took his dog for a very slow, very observant walk. At 10:47 a.m., my phone buzzed, a number I didn't know. "Mr. Lawson, this is Victor, your mobile notary. We're 5 minutes out." His voice had the smoothness of a man who sells certainty. I thanked him like people thank storms for the rain they already planned for. I walked through the rooms one last time, touching the door frames the way some people touch pews. I put the original deed's empty manila folder on the table. Only the folder, never the deed. So when they asked for originals, I could say, truthfully, the folder is right here. I slid the flash drive labeled houseproof into my pocket like a talisman. The clock camera's blue face glowed. The little red LED winked. The house felt like it was breathing with me. The doorbell rang at 10:59. I pressed record on the audio device and answered with my best version of harmless. Derek stepped in, smelling like expensive cologne and future plans. The man behind him wore a navy jacket with a notary badge clipped to it and a smile that practiced neutrality. "Victor Ames," he said, shaking my hand. His fingers were warm and dry. He set a journal on the table, opened it to a fresh page, and uncapped a pen with a soft click that sounded, in that moment, like a starting gun. We all sat. I folded my hands. The camera ticked. Somewhere in the den, a detective leaned forward. I could feel the whole house listening.
Victor laid out his tools with the neatness of a surgeon, a heavy metal stamp, a blue ink pen, and a leather journal with ribbon markers. Derek placed the leather binder between us and topped the tab that read Property Transfer. The room smelled like croissants and fresh coffee. The clock on the hutch ticked softly, an unblinking eye. "Here's the flow," Derek said, rehearsed. "First, Victor verifies identity. Then we sign the quitclaim. Then, if you want, we add a limited power of attorney so I can file at the recorder and handle the bank's little things for you. It's just efficiency." I looked from one man to the other. "Do we need Jenna here?" Victor smiled, practiced. "Not necessary if you're the sole owner, Mr. Lawson." "Okay," I said, and folded my hands, letting the audio recorder feel the squeeze of my palms. "Walk me through verify identity." He paused. Derek slid a folder forward and, like a magician revealing a duplicate card, pulled out a crisp document with my name and address at the top. "Limited power of attorney," it read, in a serif font I recognized from Derek's browser prints. Beneath that, a signature that was trying very hard to be mine. "Actually, we took care of that part. This authorizes me to sign for you on real estate filings and bank interface. You remember, Wednesday at the Willow Room. You said you didn't want to bother with all this. Victor's colleague notarized it." He said it like he was offering me a kindness I'd already accepted. My stomach dropped, not with fear, but with something steadier. Confirmation. I kept my voice even. "I don't remember signing this." "Busy week," he said, friendly, a hand hovering over the page like he owned the air above it. "This is why trustees exist, Hal. Umbrella stuff." Victor nodded along, opening his journal. On the left, page edges were inked with dates. On the right, a blank line waited. He reached for his pen. "Hold on," I said, and turned the paper slightly. The forged signature wasn't the worst I'd ever seen. It was the worst I'd ever seen of me. The L looped wrong. The H leaned left like it had a limp. "Who is your colleague, Victor?" "He's a licensed notary," he said in a tone that meant, "Don't worry about it. If you'd like, we can proceed on the strength of this POA without additional signatures today. Just my acknowledgement for the quitclaim." "No ID?" I asked, soft. "It's not necessary if—" Derek began. Victor cut in too smooth. "It's discretionary when there's a power of attorney, especially with seniors. We can attach an acknowledgement. It's a common accommodation." My heart went very calm. The mic inside my sweater felt like a coin against my ribs. Somewhere in the den, a detective leaned forward. I picked up the limited POA and read, mouthing words for the camera like a man who'd never rushed a thing in his life. The language was textbook: grant power to sign and deliver deeds, to open and close bank accounts, to interface with Harbor State Bank. The date was 2 days ago. The notary seal looked official at a glance, raised border, the right kind of ink. But I saw it. The commission number didn't match the format on the state notary website I'd checked the night before. And the stamp included a hyphen I'd never seen on a legitimate seal. Elaine had taught me cross-stitch and how to spot a counterfeit. "Your life," she said with a smirk, "depends on boring details." "When did I sign this?" I asked again, still gentle.
"At the Willow Room," Derek said, smiling. "You had meatloaf." "I haven't eaten there since 2019, I said, equally pleasant. "They changed the gravy." Victor cleared his throat. "If we could proceed." "Of course," I said, and gestured for them to continue. My hands were steady enough now to pick up my reading glasses and set them down again. If a man tries to steal your house with a pen, meet him with paper. Victor uncapped his stamp. Derek slid the quitclaim deed across the table, my name pre-typed under grantor. He tapped 2 little X marks where my signature would go, if I preferred. Then, like a man tossing a casual grenade, he nudged the POA forward. He said, "Or we can save your hand. I can sign on your behalf, and Victor can acknowledge we were all present." He was telling me, on camera, that he would sign my name and a notary would certify the act. Is there a clearer way to say theft than that? As if on cue, my phone buzzed face down. I flipped it. Brianna from Harbor State Bank. Unrecognized request to add authorized user to Lawson household account. Call if this was not you. I silenced it, not taking my eyes off the paper. The clock ticked. The house breathed. I slid the POA back an inch. "Before you stamp anything," I said, "how do you handle a power of attorney when the principal has no memory of signing and there's no ID presented?" He looked at me, looked at Derek, and made the tiniest shrug like this was above his pay grade. "We rely on the instrument, Mr. Lawson. It's common." "Right," I said, and leaned back, letting my right thumb graze the recorder's edge. 2 quick coughs, nothing dramatic, just a man clearing his throat in a kitchen where croissants cooled and a widow's crochet lay out of sight. Footsteps sounded in the hall. The den door opened. Detective Tessa Jordan crossed the threshold with the unhurried posture of someone walking into her own living room. "Mr. Ames, please put down the stamp and step back from the table." Derek stood so fast, his chair scraped a bright line across the hardwood. "What is this?" he snapped.
already smiling too wide. "How, you called the cops on your own family?" Detective Jordan held up a badge. 2 plainclothes officers slid in behind her, a quiet current replacing the charged air. "Derek Cole and Victor Ames, you're being detained on suspicion of attempted theft by deception, conspiracy to commit fraud, and violations of state notarial law." She nodded at the journal. "Hands off." Victor's mouth snapped shut. Derek started performing sincerity. "Misunderstanding. We're streamlining estate planning. He invited us. We have consent." I stayed seated. The croissants puffed in their tray like small pale hearts. "I never signed that," I said, nodding at the POA. "And you told me you'd sign for me." "It's common," Derek insisted, chin up. "Seniors delegate. He forgets things." Detective Jordan didn't blink. "We have audio and video. We also have your browser history from a device you used here, your texts about POA later, and he keeps everything in a folder, and witnesses. Please stop talking." They separated the men. An officer photographed the documents, the stamp, the blank line in the journal with today's date. Another collected the binder, finding 2 more drafts, one naming Derek as trustee, one pre-filled deed to a shell LLC with an upbeat name, Cozy Cedar Holdings. A sweet name for a theft. Victor sagged as they cuffed him, the professional neutrality bleeding out of his face. Derek looked past me to the hutch, to the clock, to the place where the camera's blue face had watched him rehearse. "Jenna will hate you for this," he said, low. He wanted it to cut. "Maybe," I said, "because saying the truth out loud is sometimes the only way to stand up straight. But at least she'll have a place to hate me in." They let him out. The door closed. The house settled, unbanded. Evan appeared like a man who had been out walking his dog and just happened to find himself in my kitchen with his hand on my shoulder. Detective Jordan collected the last forms and left me with a card. "We'll be in touch. Eat something." By dusk, Jenna was at the table where the stamped outline of a fraud had cooled into evidence. Evan had called her before the Whisper Network could. I showed her the footage. Her hands shook, and then they didn't. She watched Derek on my screen say the word POA like a magic spell, and watched an officer ease a stamp into a bag. She pressed her palms to her eyes and breathed in a way I hadn't heard since she was 8 and scraped her knees on our sidewalk. "Why?" she asked, voice thin. "Why would he marry me for a house?" What do you say to your child when love turns into math on a piece of paper? I touched the manila folder with the deed inside and told her the only thing that felt both cruel and honest. Some people see homes and think family. Some people see homes and think assets. She moved into the spare room with 2 duffels and a sledgehammer of silence. 2 weeks later, she filed for an annulment. The River County Courthouse smelled like copy paper and old coffee. Judge Daniel Whitaker's voice had the careful weight of someone who counts before he speaks. The Notary Commission Registry looked different with Victor's name struck through. Harbor State Bank sent me a letter thanking me for my vigilance and reminding me to shred anything with my account number. Detective Jordan called twice with updates I wrote down on clean cards. 2 prior victims had stepped forward, Gloria Ruiz, David Lynn, and a plea deal might avoid trial. "It still counts. It still goes on the record," she said. Months later, in a courtroom where people cough into sleeves and glance at clocks, Derek pleaded to attempted theft by deception and conspiracy. He lost the smile, too. Victor's commission was revoked. He pled to a notarial offense and cooperation. The judge used words like restitution and probation and ordered Derek to attend an ethics class whose title made Evan snort afterwards in the hall. Ethics for Adults. None of it felt like victory. It felt like weather clearing after a long pressure system. You still check the sky. We came home to a house that hadn't moved an inch.
Elaine's marigold slept under frost. Jenna put her head on my shoulder for the length of a single song, some pop thing she and her mother once danced to in socked feet. I opened the safe and showed her the deed with Elaine's blue ink notes, and for the first time in months, I wasn't afraid to sleep. What do you do when someone treats your name like a signature to be borrowed? You keep your name. You keep your house. You keep the people who were not trying to take either.
I didn't want this video to be about revenge. Sitting here now, the cameras put away and the house quiet again, what I feel most isn't triumph. It's a thin, steady kind of relief, the way your breathing unlocks when a plane lands. I've thought a lot about the little decisions that kept me from falling through the cracks. The neighbor who paid attention, the bank employee who said, "We'll know." The detective who moved softly and carried a real plan. There were no heroes here, just grown-ups doing their jobs, and one stubborn father deciding to pay attention to boring details, because boring details are how a life is protected. I wish I could say there aren't people like Derek out there, people who treat marriage like a shortcut and a deed like a coupon. They exist. But so do people who will stand next to your kitchen table and make sure your name stays where it belongs. I'm softer now with my daughter, and harder about paperwork. We make tea in the afternoons. We label things. Some of the quiet between us is grief for what we thought her marriage would be. Some of it is peace. When the house creaks at night, I don't hear threat anymore. I hear wood remembering the day it was nailed together. Holding. If you're watching this because you're in the middle of your own storm, don't be ashamed to ask for help. And don't be embarrassed to read every line twice. Love deserves trust. Property deserves caution. Both are acts of care.